In our last video, we looked at negative externalities and how to deal with them. In this video, we're going to look at positive externalities and how we deal with those. Remember that a positive externality is a good where there are two parties in a transaction who presumably both benefit, but also their transaction affects a third party who also receives benefits but didn't pay any of the costs. A good example of this would be vaccinations. Suppose you go to the doctor and get a flu shot to prevent yourself from getting the flu this year. And let's just suppose that pretty much everybody in your classroom does it. So if we have 30 students in the class, let's just say that 29 out of 30 of those people have been vaccinated. What is the likelihood of the 30th person catching flu from the other 29? Well, it's pretty much nothing, right? So that person has received the benefit of immunity or of not getting sick as a result of everybody else's transactions. So this guy who doesn't get sick, who didn't also get the vaccination, now they didn't actually incur any costs, but they did receive some benefits. So as a result, when a good is producing positive externalities, it tends to be underproduced by society because the people cannot get compensated for all of the positive effects of their actions. So in other words, they can't capture the value that they're providing to this third party. So as a result, markets tend to underproduce goods that generate positive externalities. Think about vaccinations, you think about public school, or public education, for example. These are they generate positive externalities and therefore they're underproduced. On the graph, there are two ways to do it. Both are acceptable on the AP exam. We're going to start off by just looking at how we would deal with it from the demand perspective. So we would call this the marginal social benefit, like the benefit to society. And if you look at the original curve, the one that's just labeled D, that is the private benefit. This is just the benefit between the buyer and the seller. This is the benefit between the buyer and the seller, but also how society would benefit from the transaction as well. And so again, in a situation like vaccinations, public education, what have we been saying? That the value to society is greater than the value to the buyers and sellers involved. All right, so simple enough. How can we increase these goods, or how can we make it so the markets produce enough of them? Well, what's the opposite of a tax, which is how we fix the negative ones? We use a subsidy. So we subsidize the good, and as a result, there is more demand for that good, and as a result, we have a greater quantity produced. So we go from Q to Q1. So we have, for example, in the case of vaccinations, more people vaccinated. The price may go up, but the cost to the individual doesn't go up because it's being covered by the subsidy. That would be P to P1. So this is one way to deal with this on the AP exam. And check out the second video. We'll look at how to address these from the supply side. And either one of those, it's kind of like either one is fine for the exam. So you don't have to necessarily commit to one. It's good to have familiarity with both, but as long as you know one well enough, you should be fine for the exam.